Are we all in DC, in Michigan and Chicago?
Nashville.
Nashville, how's the weather there?
It's cold. It's
Okay.
cold. Probably not as cold as you are in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, girl,
It
it's
is
so cold here.
cold here.
Is it? Is it
It
terrible?
feels like a winter that I grew up with. I mean, I said this. Oh no. I mean, hey, that's why when I went in, I ran into that little. I have a big storage space. I ran in there, had this little young man with me. I said, no, the boots are here.
That's right, boots.
We
And
grabbed about
right.
8 of these. They're these bags. They're wonderful, and they're great. Anyway, I grabbed a lot of them, and I'm going to go back and get a few more things. But so all right, everybody, I love you, and we're going to come on up right now in 5, 4, 3. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you. Let's talk about this Tennessee congressional race. Who won? Who lost? Well, Matt Van Epps won the seat, but I think Afton Bain won the night. This is a congressional district that President Trump won by 22 points just a year ago. And she closed the gap by 13 points. She knocked on more than 70,000 doors. And some establishment Democrats are saying that what she needs to do, or what the party needs to do, is find someone who's more centrist, someone who's not as radical. We don't have centrist problems. We have radical problems. Mm-hmm. We have food insecurity that is rampant. We have tens of millions of Americans who are looking at not being insured. No health insurance. Have you gone on the exchange to see how much health insurance is going to cost? Why aren't we talking about Medicare for all? You call that a radical idea? That's not radical. What we're doing is radical by letting the oligarchy overtake the republic. That's radical. That's not where we were supposed to be. So when we look at this young woman who, in the middle of this red state, and culturally, I would say, yes, that is true. But, one of the things that I've learned from watching Reverend Jackson down through the years is that you have to go into the spaces and places that are unexpected and talk to people. Mm-hmm. And make common cause with people. And when you do, you might be surprised at the friends you can make. I think we saw that last night. If you saw the stage behind her, it was a rainbow. She inspired a lot of people to get out and vote. So, no, she didn't lose everybody. And as these establishment Democrats, Jane Ruby, the League of Women Voters of Chicago, Attorney Terry O'Neill, the President Emeritus of the National Organization of Women, and Livonia Perryman, of course, veteran of the Jackson campaigns, the Mondale campaign, all these presidential campaigns, and state and local races all around the country. I wanted to bring us together to talk about what really happened and how we go forward, what this means, what this campaign meant. Because let us be very clear. The Speaker of the House, the head of the legislative branch of government, was deployed. Millions of dollars were deployed to this race by the Republican Party. It was this important, and it was this tenuously held. They really did not know what was going to happen last night. They did not. And so, as we have establishment Democrats saying, well, she was not the right candidate, but it's the right time. No, she really was the right candidate, but Democrats did not begin to really put resources in until the very, very last minute. They didn't invest in her. Think about that. Democrats still have not figured out that they need to follow the people, not have the people follow them. So let's talk about what happened in Tennessee. Did Afton Bain lose or did she win? And we understand that. Congressman-elect Matt Van Epps, and we have to give him his respects because he did win. He won the seat. with stellar credentials, and he was a strong candidate. You must establish that. But she was a strong candidate too, as a woman in the South, with as someone who was pro-choice, someone who was unafraid to stand with the marginalized. So let me start with you, Attorney Terry O'Neill, because you're right there in the heart of it all. So just take us through this campaign. What happened?
Well, I think the most important piece that I'm taking away from the election is that Afton Bain indeed came within single digits of winning, and that is what has the Republicans the national Republicans certainly very, very concerned. I don't know how concerned the Tennessee Republicans are. They have so successfully gerrymandered the state that they have like this super majority in both the state Senate and the state House. Governor Lee, I mean, to the point where when the Speaker of the House in Tennessee is tired of listening to the small number of Democrats that actually serve in that chamber, they turn off their microphones.
Wait a minute. Wait. What?
That's
No. You got to say that one more time. I don't think.
When a Democratic lawmaker is speaking on the House floor and the Speaker of the House doesn't want to hear it, the Democrats' microphone will simply be turned off. They will be told that it is not time for them to speak. I mean, it's extreme, just extreme violation of ordinary rules, and it's really their way of exercising power. Another way, by the way, that the Republicans in this state exercise power, and they do it. This is a strategy. It is not, so much something out of personal arrogance. It is a thought through strategy. Their thinking is that if they ignore Democrats and pretend that they don't even exist, they will do better electorally than if they actually pay attention to Democrats. So interestingly, one of the ways that Afton Bain really did win the messaging challenge in this election is that her opponent, Matt Van Epps, went after her personally. Because that's how much of a threat she was to them. Typically, they don't view Democrats as enough of a threat that they need to even bother mentioning them, right? When nonprofit organizations during this special election, the nonprofit organizations held candidate forums, which, because they're nonprofits, the forums open to everybody. They very aggressively went after all of the candidates. Before the primary, there were 11 Republicans running for that seat and 4 Democrats and 4 or 5 independents running for this seat. The nonprofits reached out aggressively to all, especially the Republicans, because the Democrats kind of said, sure, right away. And so did the independents. But not one Republican showed up at any of the nonprofit candidate forums, not one. Why? Because they didn't want to be on the same stage with Democrats. And the reason they don't want to be on the same stage with Democrats is they feel like they are more powerful if they just pretend Democrats don't exist. So that is that's the atmosphere that you breathe day in and day out in politics in Tennessee right now. So my thinking, what Afton Bain did was, and she's a member of the state legislature. She's had her own microphone cut off on a number of occasions. And she decided, I'm going to run for this office, and I'm going to have a platform it's the 3 F's: fund healthcare, because in the rural counties in this congressional district, the hospitals are threatened with closing very severely because of the cutbacks and because of the refusal of the state to expand Medicaid under the ACA. So hospital closings are a serious problem in Tennessee. So fund healthcare is one of her things. Feed children. Expand access to food stamps, also called SNAP. And then the third one is fix the roads, because Tennessee refuses to invest in any kind of transit. I mean, in Nashville, we're just beginning to invest in some better transit than we had, but fix the roads because Tennessee is like 1,000% car dependent. So she decided she was going to do this. And what she was doing was really, really listening to voters. She came up with those ideas from listening to voters. And these are the ordinary things that voters in the 7th District are really concerned about. They're concerned about losing their health care. They're concerned about the roads being bad. And they're very concerned about not having enough food to eat. That's especially, again, in the rural communities and in the poor communities in both Nashville. So 1/3 of Nashville, about 117,000 Nashville voters. The 7th District was gerrymandered to sort of poke it. It goes up and down, so north to south, a nice little strip of Tennessee going from Kentucky to Alabama. And then in the gerrymandering in 2020, they swung into Nashville, picked up 117,000 Nashville voters, and swung back down. So she has been talking to voters, especially working class and low income voters, about what they need. She responded to their concerns with a platform that actually spoke to the needs of working class people. The one thing that I would have wanted to hear more of, and I'm sure she knows better than I am about how it works in Tennessee, but I wanted to hear the reasons why people are so afraid of losing their health care and the reasons why people are really afraid of hunger in Tennessee. Well, a big part of that reason is that corporations have been allowed to come in and profit maximize, squeeze their employees, just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze the employees, and squeezing customers, giving a crappier and crappier thing to customers, selling them stuff that's not as good, doesn't work as well. Why? So you can get profits up to the top. And then for those people who are making all the profits, let's lower their tax burden. That is not something that I heard anything about in the campaign. I personally would have preferred to hear quite a bit about it. But all of that sort of systemic, out of control, white patriarchal capitalist systems, right, is making people very economically precarious, making us seriously worried about, we can't really spend too much of our money because we don't know if we might get kicked out of our apartment next year, or if we might lose our food stamps and not be able to feed our kids. I mean, and so I not to be babbling, but that is what Afton Bain really plugged into in this campaign. Now, when I hear centrist Democrats saying, "Oh, she should have moved to the middle," nonsense. The middle is where you refuse to talk about the excesses of capitalism that are literally making people hungry and causing them to die prematurely, unnecessarily, from lack of access to health care. It is the excesses of capitalism that the centrist Democrats don't want us to talk about. And the more we don't talk about that, the more we lose voters. The more voters just give up. So she energized an enormous number of new voters, brought them in, and I give her full credit for that. So she won the day, even though she didn't win the election.
Well, help us to understand, how is it that she closed this gap by 13 points? I think that is pretty. That's not inconsequential. That's a big deal. I think Lavonia Perryman and Jane Ruby would agree on that. Agree with that, rather. Terry O'Neill, what is it that establishment Democrats are seeing? Why do they say that? Because they start with, she was a flawed candidate. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, everybody is human, and flawed how? What? She's not too flawed to serve in the state legislature. What are you talking about? So what is this? I mean, what are we really talking about here?
I mean, Santita, I really think there is a struggle going on inside the Democratic Party for what are the values that are we going to stand for? Really, what are the values we're going to stand for? Are we going to stand for the values of the billionaire and corporate funders of the Democrats? Or are we going to stand for the needs of ordinary working people and low-income people? And let me just say, as the former president of NOW, low-income workers are very disproportionately women, and disproportionately women of color. Why? Because women predominate in service industry jobs, in healthcare, in the hospitality, and in other service type industries, right? And that is where the The pay, it has been consistently low. And so you have women who are responsible for their children and very often for their elders, and whose access to income is really not what it should be. She speaks to those low income voters and middle to low income voters who are women. And that is a very broad, very multiracial, multicultural community of women. Centrist Democrats don't think about those women when they think about American people. They're thinking about the patriarchal head of a nuclear family. They still, honestly, they still have their heads in Leave It to Beaverland in a lot of ways, right? And they think of a family. They think it's white and 2 kids and a man at the head of it, and the woman who was doing everything to hold the family together inside the house and not outside, not earning a living, and so forth. So bless their hearts.
Oh, the Southern phrase. I got it.
It's a phrase I've learned in Tennessee. It's a
Absolutely.
very useful phrase. How do I put this? They don't understand what's really going on with ordinary people right now. And they are not funded, they're not paid to understand what's going on with ordinary families.
But Terry, do they ever? I mean, Livonia, you can attest to the fight that Reverend has had, the fight that Bernie had. People would laugh Dennis Kucinich out of the room when he said, "I want a Department of Peace," even though our military incursions are bankrupting us.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm listening to you, Terry, and Terry took me back to 84 and 88. Remember that same party, which we love, and I'm not going to leave it, that we love, were not in support of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. at all. I mean, it was behind the back doors. It was a joke. Or I can't believe it's happening. And remember, it wasn't just white Democrats. It was Black Democrats, and there were male and females. Just couldn't grasp that solid African-American man who was speaking their truth, talking to the citizens all over the country about the needs and the objectives and the urgency of food, shelter, and education. Just couldn't get to that. That's one part. The other part, if I must say so, is just what you said, Terry. They're looking at the good old days. This is not by mistake. They're not confused. They would rather have the good old days where they have more control of even the women in their households. Hello, even the women in their household. It is, if you talk to some of your male friends and family members, they will tell you, well, you can't have it both ways with women. You can't have a date and then want me to pay for the date. This is ongoing arguments. What are you talking about? And so you have a party that's not only concerned about which way are we going, too far right or too far left, or are we in the center? No, they have not. The other issue, I believe, my fellow Democrats, they have not figured out how to win. You know what I'm saying? What's the message? What's the general message?
But wait, Livonia. They know what wins and what they do. You got someone who fires up New York City. More people voted in that election than voted since John Lindsay, who I remember as a child. This is before you were born, Jane Ruby. I was a toddler.
I remember
I was a toddler, seriously. And I remember these people because they were around us. So I remember them personally.
Yes.
I don't remember, and then I read about them in history books. Since 1969, something is happening in the United States. I mean, people, and say what you will about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Rand Paul. On Gaza, we have some agreement. We do. And I can work with them on that. See, let me tell you something. These are my politics. I work with you as a la carte. Yeah, I wish I could get the 3-piece meal with the chicken and the biscuit and the rice and whatever, Popeyes, whatever. I really do. But you know what? If I can find agreement with you on this particular issue that means a lot to me, if Marjorie, if you say, look, my children cannot afford health care, I can't work with you on this. Wait a minute, something is going on out here. I saw a profile of people in her district. Something is happening. And it's like the Democrats continue. I mean, you got Mom Donnie. I don't want to touch him because I don't want it, but your people want him. So what's the problem? What are you
And
talking about?
that was not Republicans. That was Democrats.
Yeah, but that's my point. But I'm saying
That was Democrats who really did not believe and really were
the
not trying to support him.
the establishment. I mean,
Yes,
they're the
the
ones that are telling us
establishment.
today that Afton Bain
But Terry hit it on the nose. What they want is the good old days. They want to be in control. They don't want a 50-50, 50
That's
for women,
right.
50 for men. That
That's
is
right.
not the option. That's not the discussion that's going on. That's not what the high echelon wants. They want 90%, 10% at home with a picket fence and the children. 10% women, 90% men. That's what it's really gnawing at them, that they're just trying to figure out. This woman, young woman, almost took the seat in Tennessee.
So you say
And guess what? Look out for her the next time around. Because she was speaking to the people, by the people. She was knocking on their doors. The Democrats, bless your hearts, and the Republicans, neither one of them thought she would even get near the numbers she got near. That's like you said, Santina, the high echelon, those individuals who want the good old days, the solid days, the money to be over here in a comfortable situation. They want to get the contracts to their certain people. They want their sons to be the ones that are being elevated versus their daughter. They're not saying it out loud, but their actions speak volumes. Their actions speak volumes.
But
And so that's
this is what we're seeing. But that's not a winning proposition.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Guess what? And let's put it on the table. The 50-50, just so that anybody would know, Republicans, liberals, Democrats, independents, the women are not going away. The majority of people who are voting in the United States, that's what's so ironic about this, are females. Let's say it again. The majority of people who are voting in the United States of America are females. The majority of people in Michigan, African American, females. Let's say it out loud. That's bothering some people. That's bothering some people. When you talk, the code word is centrist. What? What are you talking about? This woman almost won the election. You should be elevating her for the next go around. It's just like a football game. They should be giving her, well, maybe she should be the quarterback in Tennessee.
Maybe we can look at what she did and wow, maybe, but they never do that.
No.
They never. Well, Jane. Jane, I mean, help me, because this is with you. We're making a generational shift.
Yes.
in opinion, because I just help me.
Yeah, I think in all of these elections that we're seeing, it is not a Republicans or Democrats winning. We're seeing the people win.
Yes.
And we're seeing the people, the things that the people, like capital P, care about. Those are the things that they're voting for. Those are the things that they're pushing change for. I think that we are really sort of at a pivotal moment that the two-party system isn't working. One of the things, there's a lot of interesting things about our democracy, but one of them is, the two-party system is inherently built into the way our government works and operates and functions in ways that other countries' democracies, the parties, kind of are just, off to the side, and they sort of have their own thing, and then they come and interact in politics and go back. Here, the two-party system is so entrenched in how things work and how things operate and what doesn't work and what doesn't operate, that, we're really at a, it's sort of that kind of like, fracturing moment where we're sort of starting to see that the system is not working. The system is not working for not even the majority of people in this country, but not working for anyone in this country. You can, go through a laundry list of issues where we're seeing, people stray out of like, normal party lines and not being able to, fit into particular molds of, what correct training and correct societal positions. And it's because these systems are not working anymore. People have demands, that are completely valid. It's like, why can't we have basic human needs met in this country? Why can't we all be treated as people of dignity and importance and access to opportunity? That we're seeing, I think with the digital age where the world has sort of opened up, a lot of people are like, hey, these other countries can, give universal health care, can give universal education. Why can't we have here? And those are, and everyone's response is, well, those are other countries don't work like the US. It's like, yes, that's true, but it doesn't mean that we can't have these nice things. And I think that, the right questions are being asked of our government. The right stressors are being put on them, that it's like they're really going to need to answer for these things. And, I don't know what the timeline is. I think we're at the starting point of, real seismic change in how people are, in people reclaiming their not just political power, but, autonomy over, how they live their lives, what governs them, what we care about. I think we're, just at sort of the start of that seismic shift. But, we're seeing the effects of this people power movement in a lot of these elections that are happening. And I think that, that is a nonpartisan position. I think both parties have severely hurt, the majority of people for way too long. And, it's really exciting to see, people starting to get it. One of my, a song that I've quoted quite a lot recently is Phil Oakes's "Love Me, I'm a Liberal." And I think that, very much speaks to the moment that we're in, and sort of the irony of, how a lot of people in establishment party politics behave. And, the song was written in 1966. Things haven't changed. The song is just as relevant to today. The issues are just as relevant as today. Like, Santita, your father's campaigns for president, they were mentioned a little bit earlier. Like, we're not talking about those enough, because he gave blueprints for a just and equitable and dignified American society. And both parties rejected that, and worked really hard to suppress any of that kind of, people-powered progress at the time. But, 40 years ago, the blueprint was laid out. And, look at where we are today, still fighting for that just, equitable, dignified American society that we all deserve to be living in now and for future generations.
Well, what was the theme of the campaign? Was a just society and a more peaceful world. And we pivot to that campaign. Please, Bernie Sanders pivots to it because he came out of it. And let me say hello to Linda Liu and RBJ Lemuel and Janice Faye and Correctional Officer for the Lockdown. You give me a mouthful, man. John Howard and Ashley King. Sending you so much love, Daniel and Andre and Carol and Snowman and Dave Dowling from way our neighbors to the north. That's right, sending him so much love. Sending all y'all so much love today. Beat Health Fair and sending you so much love. Hey, Robert. Hey. I'm saying hello to everybody that I can. Michael and 2370. Hey, sending you all much love. Hey, I got you in. And to those of you who I see here, but you are on Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. You're on Reverend Jesse Jackson's page. You're on Santita Jackson .bsky.social on Blue Sky. You're on the Santita Jackson IG on Instagram. You are on, oh my goodness, where else am I? X at Santita J. So please like and share, like and share. One of the great things that's helping everybody. Please thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. I'm so pleased. I happened to find this out as I was looking for something one day. And Livonia and Terry and Jane, we are getting like in the millions of views after like a month or so. People, you all continue to pass the show along, pass it along, pass it along. And so please continue to do that, because, I got jammed up in the algorithm like so many people, but you all continue to pass the show along. So, hey, good on you, because what we're trying to do is have some conversations that you want to have. Okay. And you know what? I love Heather Cox Richardson. I am someone who follows her. And I think she is fantastic, and got a chance to speak with Mary Lech Mamdani. He reached out to Reverend, he and Letitia James and Spike Lee through Reverend Sharpton reached out to him for Thanksgiving. So it was wonderful to be able to speak with them. And so hats off, and I'm going to reach out to try and get them. But I really want to focus on talking with all of you, which is why I've not had I think it's important to talk to people who are well known, but we want to amplify the voices of those who are not known and who are out there. You're the one with the power. You have far more power than you even know. And that's what we're really trying to talk about today. The power that you have. Jane, you make the brilliant point that what's exciting about Mamdani and Reverend and Bernie Sanders is that these people spoke to our highest, most profound aspirations, and they won. So it showed that the people really do have the power. And we have to tap into it. Number one, we have to believe it. Because when people began to believe that Mamdani could win, he became a snowball that could not be stopped. I mean, and look, you had to keep on going because that thing was coming down the hill. And your skis, you couldn't get over your skis fast enough because he just came and he took it all. So I want us to really think about that. We have the power, and we have to instruct all of the parties and the parties that you might not even want to join, but you need to get registered to vote, period. And you have to let them know that they need to follow you. You don't need to follow them because they're following their donors who don't have your best interest at heart. I'm just keeping it there. I'm just being very honest with you. And for me, this is about Medicare for all. That's what this is about to me. This is about no child being left behind, and no old person, and no one being left behind. I have to tell you, to be frank with you, I'm looking at my parents that have worked hard all of their life, and you should not have to, because my father has Medicare and insurance. But Medicare can't do this because they only let this happen once a week. Even if he's got a pressure wound, we can't do this because Medicare only allows for that. No one should have to live like that. And this is an argument that he was making before he was in this position. And thank God he's married to a woman who advocates like a beast for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got children who advocate like a beast for him, because one of us is spending the night with her, who stays with him every night. Everybody should have health care. This shouldn't be a privilege, it's a right.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah. Right, because we are looking at one another, and we are able and having challenges in terms of healthcare with family members. Right. We're able and blessed. But just millions, not thousands, millions of individuals today, at this very moment, are dealing with parents, children, family members their own health care and not worried about if they're going to live or be not with us. They're trying to figure out if they're going to get their medication tomorrow, or do they have enough money? And we hear the arguments about should they buy food or should they buy Medicare. We were hearing that when I was 15. I am way over 15 now. And we're still, like you said, Jane, having the same discussions we had 40 years ago. But I want to go back to the Tennessee situation. The reason the young lady almost...
But Livonia, stay right here, because this is part of the Tennessee situation. Because people keep saying, and I want you to speak to this, Livonia, because you were in this fight.
Yes.
Everybody keeps saying that we need a centrist when we don't have centrist problems. We got
Thank you.
We have people problems.
Yeah.
We have citizens problems. We have male-female problems. We have little boys, little girls problems. We have grandmothers and grandchildren's problems. We have husband and wives problems. We have friends problems. These are not problems. These are needs. These are needs that, Jane, you said that we should not be demanding. We should be working out a compromise on how we can serve, how our leadership. We should demand from them, but we should be looking at how we serve it, regardless of what party you're in. Regardless of what party you're in. This isn't a centrist conversation. This is a unified human being lifestyle discussion. And what is happening, they put us in boxes. So we say, well, should I be a liberal? Should I be on the left of this? Or should I be on the right? No. You should be on the right side of taking care of one another in America.
So, I mean,
that's what it should be.
Well, then ladies, help me to understand. Let me start with you, Terry, because the establishment are saying, and my mother said, I hope the Democrats don't go back to their racist leanings and say that we need to get a centrist, Jane, we need to go to the right. When you need to go to, as you just said, Livonia, we need to go to the right side. Okay, Terry.
Right. But let me say this one more thing. Just one more thing. No, they're centrist and centrist male. Just to be very clear what they're asking for. This is just my humble opinion. But I think that's where they're trying to go. So we need a centrist male figure to take us to the promised land. That's just how I'm reading. You said, what are we reading today? That's what I'm reading today. That's what I'm reading.
Honestly, what you're saying is you've opened my eyes, because they are the ones who are giving us these opinions, and they're the ones, Livonia, Jane, Terry, take it away. They're the ones who I'm seeing on television today, and they're telling us, what we need. I'm like, but the people don't feel that way.
No, yeah. Not even close.
I mean, Terry, so how do you even speak to these establishment Democrats who still run the party?
Well, I think the way we speak to them is we primary them and they lose. And that's what they will understand. This is politics, and it may be in a different context. It's, I have a friend that I work with here in Nashville, and talking about family members of mine who I'm pretty sure voted for Trump. I don't talk to them about politics. And I said, I just don't know how to deal with this. And Corey said, look, this is how it works. You have to hate the sin, but you love the sinner. You are not required to walk away from your entire family because they did the wrong thing. You are only required to deplore the wrong thing that they did. So, okay. So with that in mind, that's outside the political context. In the political context, we defeat the centrist Democrats. That's what Zoran Mamdani did. Chuck Schumer was made irrelevant. Chuck Schumer is from New York City. He was irrelevant in that ground shaking election. Hakeem Jeffries was basically irrelevant in that election, because he came in very late in the day with a very watered down, kind of wishy-washy endorsement for Mamdani. Even Kathy Hochul, who did endorse Mamdani sooner than Hakeem Jeffries did, she's now saying, well, I'm not going to support you in free bus rides. And I predict that Mamdani will simply roll over her. That's politics. You have to build political power to do that. We have to defeat the centrist Democrats. And one of the things that I think is important for us to remember right now, that's different from what it was in the 60s and 70s. Remember, in the 60s and 70s, America, and I mean very predominantly white Americans, were at the high point of their of the benefits that were created under FDR in the 30s and 40s. It really didn't produce those huge benefits until the baby boomers were kids growing up, right? And those were the times when the middle class got extremely large. Middle class white people got very, very large. That's a big difference from what we have today. The middle class is a shadow of what it was in the 50s and 60s. If you define middle class as a family who can pay off their mortgage, in a relatively short period of time, who can and send their kids to college and have some savings for their old age and have they have like money set aside right now. So if they have a $400 emergency, they could pay for it. If that's what middle class is, very few people in this country are middle class. Over half of Americans do not have $400 for, an emergency, a health emergency, or your car breaks down so you can't get to work, whatever it is. So the middle class has been systematically shrunk since roughly around the 1980s and onward. So there's a guy named Corbin Trent. He's on Substack. He's from East Tennessee. He makes an argument that I think is very interesting, which is don't look at how many dollars it takes to buy this or that or the other, a house or a college education. Look at how many hours, how many years do you have to work in order to pay off your mortgage? Today, it's about 3 times as many years you have to work to pay off your mortgage compared to what it cost back in the 60s or 70s. To get a college education, it's like 5 times or 6 times. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's really striking because the reason the middle class has been so squeezed is because of the relentless profit maximizing nature of capitalism, not making a profit. Every company wants to make a profit, but maximizing the profit so that virtually everything goes up to the top. What happens with that is you're going to squeeze the employees. You're going to keep their wages down and down and down. Now, how are you going to squeeze your consumers? You're going to charge more for less. So imagine this happening over a 40-year period. You're constantly squeezing and squeezing your employees, paying them less and less and less. You are squeezing your customers by giving them less and less and less for more and more and more money. Well, your customers are those middle-class wage earners whose wages are not going up enough. So what we have is people, when we say affordability, what we're really talking about is I don't have access to the kind of job or the kind of income that would allow me to get my kids through college without crushing debt, to own my home after I've lived there for 15 or 20 years, and to have some money set aside for my old age. Because of wages and the increase in costs, that's what affordability, that's why we have an affordability crisis. And I would just say one more thing. In the city of Nashville, like every city, there is, you have affordable housing requirements. A developer wants to put up a big fancy apartment building. You say, well, we'll give you this break from this zoning and this break from that zoning, but so much percentage of your apartments have to be affordable. This is how it works. This is what the developers do. I went door to door recently in the most recent election with a young woman who is a musician. She lives in Nashville. She's very talented. But as a musician, she has a side job. She delivers. She works for a delivery company. And she's in quote unquote affordable housing. For the past 3 years, her affordable apartment the rent has been increased by $60 per month.
What?
$60 per month for each of the last 3 years, because under the terms of the developer's contract with the city, they're allowed to do that. And she's not allowed to stay there if her wages go over $40,000 per year. Currently, she's paying $1,100 a month for her apartment, and she makes under $40,000 per year. That is not affordable. I'm saying that without screaming, and it takes a lot of emotional energy for me not to scream about this. Not only that, but after a 10-year period, the developer is then allowed to start marketing those rental apartments at regular market prices. So they only have to be affordable for 10 years. This is why we have an affordability crisis in this country, because our regulators are allowing the greedy profit maximizers just to get away with just terrible things all the time. So Mamdani really understood that. He was talking about free buses that actually are good, that run, that fast, that are reliable. He wants free childcare. That's a huge issue for women. An enormous issue for women is paying for childcare. And the other piece of his, which is really important, is force rich people to start paying their fair share, which they haven't done in about 30 years. Force them to start paying their fair share for all of these things that make life so much more livable in New York City. The specifics of that might be different from city to city, but the overall value system that he identifies in his campaign absolutely, I think, applies across the entire country. This is scary to the very billionaires and corporations who are whispering in the ears of the centrist Democrats 24/7.
I mean, Jane, how does that, because it seems like we're on a collision course, which I don't think is a bad thing. But, I think that the people have to win because the people can't lose. You can't have people who are not going to have any health care. You can't have people who cannot afford housing. You can't have people who cannot afford food. AI can't take over all the jobs. I mean, you have some people who've been paid to stay home. So I guess AI can figure out what they do, and then you're not going to hire them anymore. I mean, this is not working. This is not an economy that feeds people. It feeds on people.
Mm.
This is not the way this is supposed to work, y'all. I mean, really. So, I mean, because I personally am tired of hearing corporate Democrats tell me anything. I'm tired of it. No, not when we're struggling like this. We're struggling. People can't. I can't breathe. So help me. I've got about 5 minutes left here. You all got to tell me something.
Well, I know I've referenced this on the show before, but it kind of, I think it sums up a lot of the feelings. Is the episode of The Simpsons where Lisa is sort of screaming into the void, the whole damn system is wrong. And I think that's very much the moment that we're in, and that image just I should probably get that tattooed, just because because it's so much of the moment, screaming into the void and, talking about why these systems are not working. In a lot of my work, I also remind people, which is often sort of jarring for them, that the United States there are over a dozen human rights related treaties that the United States has refused to sign on to at the United Nations. And I think, when people are like, well, what do you mean that we're, we don't sign on to human rights treaties? I'm like, take a look at what's happening in this country. What has happened in this country since our founding? We're coming up on the semi-quincentennial, year of the, declaring independence from England. And where are we really at? What are we fighting for? What do we stand for? These are things that we are constantly fighting for, a much more just and inclusive democracy for all, for the past 250 years. And we're not there yet. And, these are the fights that we're going to keep having to fight. But, we are in such a state of, disgusting violation of basic human rights in this country. And, and the powers that be, the systems that be, the whole damn system is wrong. They benefit off of, the lack of care and compassion that we should really be having for each other. There's so many, like, the idea that we're starting to see movement where, people are reclaiming their power as voters and, voting according to the things that they care about is incredibly inspirational. But we're still up against so many systems that, it's going to take a while to see the results. We need an overhaul of campaign finance and how campaigns are financed in this country. We need to be looking at how do we build much more inclusive voting systems, things like ranked choice voting, and can expand choice for voters. We need to be looking at signing on to human rights treaties at the global level that hold us accountable in a hard data perspective as to what we really believe in and what we really stand for in terms of human rights. We need to acknowledge the ERA and understand that discrimination regardless of gender is not something that we stand for. We need to talk about Medicare for all. We need to talk about what universal basic income could look like for people that need assistance. We need to talk about what access to fair and well-funded education can look like for people. And so, voting is a huge part of getting us to the point that we can, be really looking at these systems. But there's so much happening above us that has been happening, for the past 250 years about, ways that we can keep our people, tied to, this poverty and injustice that, it will take time. But, as I said earlier, I think we're really sort of at a pivotal moment in the people power movement. And, that is really, what we need to be building more of and be, keeping, hope alive with.
Well, look, amen to that. And Jane, she and her husband were serving dinner at Rainbow Push because we were keeping hope alive, feeding people for Thanksgiving. I literally have 2 minutes because I've got an emergency at my door. That things happen in the building. Someone actually slipped in front of my building trying to get the bus, and she was killed this morning.
Oh no.
So my prayers, well, people are pushing so hard.
Yes.
May the child rest in peace. People are pushing so hard.
Yes.
She was caught, she fell, and the bus accidentally rolled over her. And so it's been a little bit of upset. I just got home to that. Yeah. And so I need to go answer someone who's at my door. But I wanted to, of course, give Terry and Livonia closing remarks. Livonia, you?
Right. Very well. Very real quick. And Jane, you just hit it on the nose. When I was thinking of all of this is one, keep hope alive. I have to hold on to that phrase. And I'm not saying it because I love Reverend Jesse Jackson. But I'm saying it because he believed it and he shared it with us. And I believe him, and I still believe that's keep hope alive. Number two, if we could put our 7 million people to walk in a march, we not connect the dots. We can't stop there. We must look at what are we going to do? 7 million people walked. Well, just what you're saying, Jane, and just what you're saying, Terry. They said that these are things that we must fight for. And so that walk needs to be a trot. Then it needs to be a race to the polls and support the individuals, be they male or female, who are going to represent us locally and nationally to speak our truth. And affordabilities and these key words that we're talking about, Terry, those words, sometimes those words don't mean anything to our neighbors. Affordability, who can afford a Mercedes? Who can afford a Toyota? You see where I'm going? So it's defined differently for individuals. So keep hope alive where we need to be and connect the dots. We need to move from a walk, a march, a trot to a race to the voting polls.
Mm-hmm.
Terry O'Neill, last minute belongs to you.
100% Livonia. That's it. And I want to be linking arms with you and with Jane and with Santita as we march and then trot and then race and start winning these elections. I think we do it by exactly what Livonia is talking about, a constantly enlarging coalition of all of us who are determined to walk together and achieve exactly what Reverend Jackson talked about in the 1980s and what Bernie Sanders is talking about, what Afton Bain's been talking about, what Zoran Mamdani has been talking about. We link arms together, we'll be unstoppable. We will keep hope alive.
And you know what? Love you, Dave. Dave had an accident, but thanks be to God. He spent the spring and summer in surgery recovering from an accident, 60 stitches in his head and 4 spots. But thank God that you are doing well and you are on your way to your recovering. And we want everyone. And Dave, you're up in Canada. You know, if that happened to you in the United States, God help you. Shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be that way. Should not be that way. No one should have to scrape by, not in a world of plenty. God is such a genius that everything that every human being has ever needed since the beginning of existence is still here.
Yes.
And it just keeps replenishing. Think about that, everybody. So just please get out here, get it. Vote. And be just everybody, come on. Let's get this together. I love you. I'm out of here, and I am going to I'm going to take care of my business. I love you all, everybody. The Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Love you. I love y'all.
Love you too, dear.